Good evening, Kerry.
Good evening.
It's great to see you again.
And you, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, and it has been quite a lot of things that happened during these last days, and what we are going to talk about are super soldiers and also the whole picture, what we could do as humanity to handle this situation, because now we have gathered, we know a lot of things that is going on against us. So what we could do against that, and we are going to talk about Aaron McCollum. In the beginning, it's super soldiers, and you have interviewed him. And what I would like to say also that I cooperate with a Polish team. I am now in Czech Republic, but most of my life I have lived in Sweden. And the Polish team asked Ole Dammegård, who works with false flag, to look at a particular false flag operation in Poland in April 2010, when almost the whole government was killed or assassinated. And actually, I believe Aaron McCollum says to you in 2010 during this interview something like, if you believe that the Polish government, it was like an aircraft accident, forget it, or something like that. I don't know if you remember. And
Yes, I remember the flight, and I remember the members of the government that were on the flight, and yes, they were all taken out.
yeah, and Ole Dammegård, you know Ole very well because you have interviewed him many times. So he has promised to do the research about that particular false flag around 15th of March. He would be talking about it with us.
Okay, all right, good to know.
Yeah, and before I ask you many questions, uh, how I would like to ask you um, about translations, how you look at it, because it's very important now that your interviews are translated to as many languages as possible, I believe, or your lectures. Uh, we have got from Miles Johnston. He allow us to translate your lecture from, for example, basis conference in September 2017. I highly recommend this lecture. Especially the second part two. There you give a lot of information. So we have received from Miles Johnson that it's okay to translate it and have it on our YouTube channels in Polish and Czech. But I don't know if you allow it also.
Yes, I mean, it's fine with me to translate or have my videos translated. My webmaster is trying to work on making that possible. There's a certain technical way that it can be handled on the YouTube channel, and I don't know what it is personally, but he can help to facilitate that.
Mm. Uh, Kerry, could you talk a little bit about super soldiers? Explain whom we call super soldiers, and then there are especially three I am thinking of. It's Aaron McCollum, think um, James Casbolt, Michael Prince. If we take these two, then you maybe can talk about others. Explain the term.
I mean, Duncan O'Finian was the original first super soldier, as they call them. And we had that confirmed by Pete Peterson, another witness who had been working in Black projects for about 40 years. And so it kind of started with Duncan as we understand it. And I interviewed Duncan, and he's also spoken at my conferences. So that conference footage as well is also available on my YouTube channel and my website. ProjectCamelot.tv is the best URL to use now, because my Project Camelot portal.com is being blocked in many countries apparently. So at any rate, both URLs go to the same place. So there's obviously Michael Prince and James Casbolt are the same person, and that story has been out there for quite some time. I think it's pretty well known at this point. I'm not sure there's any point in going into it in any real depth, other than to say that I did interview him and Max Spears at the Super Soldier, I think it was Summit, it was called, in I think it was in Vegas, outside of Vegas actually. And that was a few years ago. And since then, Michael Prince, which originally I dealt with James Casbolt. James Casbolt, this alter, Michael Prince is an alter of James Casbolt. And James Casbolt was a fairly seemingly reasonable guy who sent me quite a bit of information. That's all available on my website. You can just do a search under his name. And he sent me a lot of detailed information in writing. And he was never interviewed at that time by me in person, although I did go to England several times and invited him to meet me for an interview, but he refused to do so, or was unable to make it at any rate. And then years later, Michael Prince came forward as the new alter that was dominating the personality or the physicality. And so that he is a sort of a super soldier. In fact, at the summit, he was, in a certain sense, you might say, the alpha dog, the person who was in charge of the other super soldiers, reporting to the Illuminati or whoever it is they actually directly report to, probably in the English power system. And Michael Prince did spend some time in the U.S. military as well. He was married to an heiress from, and I think her name's Haley, if I have her name right. And all of that detail, you can do searches on the internet and get information about that. My interview with Michael Prince and Max Spears was I guess a couple years before Max actually was killed. Max Spears was killed. It appears to be a kind of accidental death, I think they're trying to call it. But the evidence is that he was taken out and probably given some directed energy weapon that also was in sort of connection with certain pills that he was taking. That's what it appears to be at this time. But they were never able to do a sufficient, from what I understand, autopsy. At least the autopsy has not been revealed to my knowledge, and you can check with Miles Johnston for more on that detail. But the person that Max Spears was staying with, is a very well-known journalist in, I believe, Poland, Czechoslovakia, that area. And she, her first name is Monica, I think. And she refused to come forward and talk about, even though he died on her couch, I guess literally in her place, a fairly well-appointed, I don't know if it was a mansion or just a large house of some kind where he was staying. And I think, not sure whether he was in Poland or Czechoslovakia, maybe you know, because you know the area better than I. So at any rate, he was also supposedly a kind of a super soldier, and there are many interviews with Max. What happened when I interviewed Michael Prince and Max, and this was one of the first interviews ever done with them, I believe, together on one interview. However, Max at that point was sort of submissive to Michael Prince, and so he wasn't really revealing himself. Much later, a couple years, as the years went by, he seemed to establish himself as more of a whistleblower and came forward in a very positive way to reveal many things. And those videos, again, are available, I believe, at this time over YouTube. I think Miles Johnston had him speak at his conference with Sarah Adams, I believe, his partner at the time. And that is there's a lot of history there. So so that's another super soldier. Sorry. And let's see, there's Aaron McCullum was an early super soldier that I interviewed when in the past in Project Camelot. And I can say that he was a fascinating guy that I think I'm the first person to bring him forward to the public. And he was a dolphin-human hybrid. It appeared that from his testimony, he had dolphin DNA and was able to survive in water, and possibly have special swimming abilities, etc., that were put into him as a result of being a dolphin-human hybrid. So I did 2 major interviews with him. Those are both on my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And there are many others. Super soldier is just a sort of, you might call it a slang term for an enhanced soldier. So it's a soldier who works for, in many cases, what we call the secret space program. And they have enhanced abilities. Sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's psychic, psychological, sometimes in terms of strength. Duncan O'Finian, for example, could throw a man across a room and did so on a few occasions, apparently. And there's also there's splits, a lot of alters in a super soldier oftentimes. And some of them, like, oh gosh, what's his name? Another person that I've interviewed so many people, it gets ridiculous, but the Randy Kramer, who was is also apparently a super soldier, who was on Mars, working on Mars and the moon for long periods of time. It does appear that Duncan O'Finian also was sent to Mars. His memory was not very intact in terms of that information, or at least he didn't reveal it during the time I was in contact with him. I am no longer in contact with him. And also there was Duncan's partner, and she's also enhanced, and came forward and spoke at one of my conferences. And there's been a lot of other, you can appreciate that the secret government, that the government, as you understand it, governments that are bonded together to create sort of a massive government, and that is made up of a lot of different military, and it is also made up of military from other countries and individuals from other countries. But enhancing a super soldier, what we now call transhumanism, this is sort of commonplace at this point. So it's not unusual. And it has been the case with Project Camelot that not only the super soldiers, but all of my witnesses, almost without exception, have had ET contact, as well as have at least very good psychic abilities. So it appears that when they get recruited to work for the government, even as scientists or in other capacities, they often either train them in sort of remote viewing or the other extrasensory, what are called, psyops or tech. This is common. So in answer to your question, I'm not sure that, I'm covering sort of a large gamut, but.
Yes, you do. Duncan and Aaron, wasn't it so that Aaron was time traveled and they have done something in Vietnam, and many people got killed there. So that wasn't it some.
Well, I'm not sure about Aaron going to Vietnam, but Duncan was definitely in Vietnam, and he was there as a child as part of a group of psychic children that participated in apparently, according to his story, exterminating a certain village of people, if I understand it correctly.
Mm. And when we are talking about this black orb and psychic, I've heard that the center of this psychic negative forces against us, humanity, that it's in the headquarters of NATO in Brussels. Have you heard about it? Anything?
Well, Brussels is the center of the Illuminati. It's this, it's one of their, you might say, their capital or whatever. Although another very huge center is located in England, of course, in the city of London. So those are centers. The Vatican is another one. There are particular centers where they operate from, I guess you want to call it, and Brussels is certainly one of them.
Mm. I would like to ask you about James Casbolt on Michael Bay. He said that he was born 76 and that there were 42 children brought as babies to a military base in Canada in Rocky Mountains, and that these children were had DNA close to Anunnaki, he said. To me, when I heard here 42 children, 42 is 7 times 6, and 7 plus 6 is 13. They were born 76. 7 plus 6 is 13. It's obviously Illuminati operation, and but what he said, that they were tortured, of course. He said that there were 2 people who trained them, and I believe one of them was Bush Senior, and I believe the second one was the Queen Mother of Elizabeth Windsor. I will check it up, but do you remember anything like that? And then the second thing is that he said that in his body is some kind of like metal, that he's almost like a cyborg inside. Do you remember?
Yes, but I have to say that that's also part of the enhancement that goes with super soldier, the transhuman quality, and certainly having, it's possible that there's metal inside of his body. I don't know, I mean, I do remember him claiming that, and it wouldn't be out of the question or unusual with regard to super soldiers. As far as his story about as a child being in Canada, Max Spears being there as well, as I heard, and this is something that is known, and there's a lot of isn't it Kevin Arnett that also talks about this same kind of thing going on in Canada, and there are other stories as well having to do with what is called the Franklin scandal, having to do with the pedophiles, and there's a Canadian counterpart to that, also involved with religious institutions, the Catholic Church, and so on. So, and orphanages, and things of that nature. So, yes, they do claim that the Queen of England was involved, and so, yeah. Again, this is not information that I can verify, but this is information that is being conveyed to us from James Casbolt, Michael Prince, that particular person, yes. And Max Spears did also, I believe, talk about the time in Canada as a child and some of the things that went on there. Aaron McCullum, I believe, was also might have spent some time in Canada.
Mm. I'm glad you mentioned Kevin Annett. He was a huge disappointment for me. He has also cheated with money, but it's not the most important. But because the most important, as I found it, the problem is that this International Court of Justice that he said he has is a fraud, and it's not that I have lost 10,000 Canadian dollars. It's because of him or he took it. It's the least of it. I don't know if you have seen a video he did with Anne-Marie van Blienberg, or another who is from the Netherlands, and Matt Thor's Ninnyhouse. These people are risking life. These Anne-Marie van Blienberg told him that that he has seen probably Soros and the former king of Belgium and other personalities were involved in drugging children, and that the brother of a Dutch king, they were sitting in like a theater. He was raping the child, and that they sacrificed the child, and that it's obvious that the Queen of the Netherlands has provided the children. She said she's risking life, and this court is a fraud. So what I am suggesting that such courts are needed. He is a fraud. They have tried to blackmail me and so on. That we need to have something like International People's Court of Justice, where we can come and say, look, 9/11 was a fraud. Obviously, nobody took care of it, and so that I am from the beginning. I would like to have a international court of justice, but not that the people who are the judges don't need to be lawyers or law educated. Just swear oaths and look who killed JFK. You have evidence. Look who did 9/11. Like in your home country, you have Secret Service guys like Chief of FBI, Robert Mueller, also the former, who took office as Chief of FBI a few days before 9/11, and now he is a prosecutor of Donald Trump. He would be in prison for a long time ago. So nobody will do it for us if we don't do it the right way.
Okay, well, that's, I appreciate all of that. As far as Kevin Arnett is concerned, I don't know anything about, him or the way he operates. I did see him on the video when I was speaking at your conference, I believe, in Prague. And at that time, he seemed to be talking about these situations in a way that would be, positive towards solving them. If he is, compromised, and if I'm not sure the name of the court you're referring to, that is he involved, that he's involved in this, what you're calling it, an international court. What court is it that you're saying is compromised?
I can tell you, and you said the centrum of the Illuminati or the problem is in Brussels, in Belgium.
Right.
It's itccs.org. You can find it, and it's from Belgium.
Okay.
So you could understand.
I mean, a lot of people won't appreciate this, but MT also had a lot of trouble with the Belgium system, and also talked about the pedophilia ring that was very operational in that country, and so on. And he tried to expose it. He has had nothing but trouble, I think, with what he's encountered in wherever he tries to set his operation up, the latest being somewhere in Africa. So whether he is everything he claims he is or not, I don't know, but I do know that we were practically poisoned when we went to Venice, Italy, and were on the way to interview him the next morning. We both, myself and my cameraman partner, Neil, became practically deathly ill and were unable to complete the interview or meet with him at all in person. So if he had nothing to contribute, then I don't think that they would go to such lengths to make it impossible for us to meet. But I can say that he has talked at length about and I think he has exposed as well, the pedophilia ring in Brussels, in Belgium, and that area. So, it all kind of links together. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. I can say that there is special news out there. I don't know if you want to, I know you have your certain topics you want to cover, but, here in America, there has been an effort at what appeared to be disclosure, and I'm finding out now it was actually not what it appeared to be. So I think that I should reveal that on this interview here. So if you want to set aside some time for me to do so, I will be glad to communicate what I've heard from some sources.
Yeah, can you do it now?
Sure. So what we have is the Tom DeLonge, I forget what the name of the organization he put together is. It's called something to the stars, going to the stars, or whatever it is. And I do have some notes here on this, and possibly I can pull them up. So I can say that he has a number of people that are working with him that have all claimed to have quit their jobs, but if at closer examination, I think you will find that they didn't actually quit their jobs. And those people are, it's interesting. I put this information up here, and for some reason it's not showing up, and I don't know why. That's just typical. So I don't have the names of his team or any of that information, but I do have articles I've written about this. So if you go to my Project Camelot portal.com or projectcamelot.tv website, you will see, if you search under DeLonge, you'll find a couple of articles that I've detailed some of the, you might say, inaccuracies and things that should be brought into question about that effort, which seems to be an effort at disclosure. However, in his presentation, as many people will know, there was a presentation in which he showed some footage. Well, actually, one of the people on his team, whose name escapes me at this exact moment, I could pull it up on my other computer. But at any rate, they showed this sighting of a craft, and then I heard later that it was supposedly multitude of crafts. And there's been a pilot interviewed. It's been on every major newspaper here in the United States and in England, I believe. And this one incident that has happened supposedly 13 years ago was talked about first on stage with Tom DeLonge's team, and then it resurfaced as part of a reveal on what was said to be a Pentagon program to investigate supposedly what they called aerial threats. And there's an individual called, I think his name is Luis Elizondo, who is supposedly former or current CIA. You're never really former CIA. So at any rate, he is involved in this just so-called disclosure, and you will have seen the video with the pilot. And in fact, I guess Grant Cameron recently interviewed John Lear about the incident, and John is calling into question the incident itself that was put out there. But this was sort of trotted forward as a kind of disclosure for the first time that actually military individuals, and seeming to be sanctioned by the military, were revealing to the press. And in fact, Rich Dolan, if you don't know, was interviewed by CBS on this very subject recently over the last, 10 days. And it's really fascinating because according to my source, this particular sighting, again, you have to kind of understand what we're dealing with here, is a rule by secrecy. And in the rule by secrecy, they are supposedly trying to break that secrecy open slightly by disclosing certain things that will lead supposedly lead people to understand that this area called the secret space program is far more advanced than what they've been led to believe. And that we've also been dealing with races from other planets. We have interstellar flight, and we've been traveling between the planets and so on and so forth, and outside our solar system, interstellar, and so on. And all of this is what Project Camelot has been covering for the last 12 years on my website, that I've been an investigative reporter, documentary filmmaker to reveal. However, this one incident then went from the disclosure of Tom DeLonge and his team for this To the Stars group, and then ended up, as I say, as part of this sort of rollout. And yet, if you look back into the incident, what happens is not only does John Lear, who's an expert pilot from many, many years, and I've interviewed him numerous times, and recently saw him in person in Vegas. I attended his birthday party, which was a very interesting event. And I can say that John has recently, as I said, been interviewed by Grant Cameron. I'm going to try to get a hold of John to interview him myself on this issue, because he is claiming that the video and the audio do not go together of this particular incident from 13 years ago. And I'd like to pull it up if you're willing to have me take just I'll try to get the picture on the screen here if I can possibly do so. And I don't know if it will show up or not. And I'm going to open a window here and we'll see if it.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email.
That doesn't work. Okay. I hope that I didn't cut us off. Okay, that's not working. I'm not sure what happened here. There's a weird window that just opened up. Okay, maybe I can't show you. Anyways, it kind of shows a bullseye, and then it shows one little craft in the picture. John is questioning whether that is an inlaid picture within another picture, and whether the whole video image is really hoaxed or incorrect. And he's also said that the audio is not the way pilots talk to each other, that there are there's a dialogue that goes on talking about wind speed that is inaccurate and not relevant to the sighting that this particular pilot or a group of pilots was having of these amazing craft. The craft themselves were seen and documented and put in again on. I think it was in the New York Times. It was across the board, major newspapers talking about this. And for once, it wasn't part of a giggle factor or conspiracy theory. It was actually a quasi-military reveal of a particular incident that happened 13 years ago that was investigated supposedly by them, that was supposed to be a UFO or group of UFOs that the military filmed and then revealed now just here in 2017. So you have to count back 13 years, I think, whatever that is, 2004 or whatever. And so then we find out, when I talked to one of my whistleblowers, that actually those are not UFOs, that they are actually high-powered spacecraft, part of our secret space program. That this incident has been revealed as a sort of a warning, a shot across the bow to China and their secret space program, basically trying to show them the technology that we have and how advanced it really is. And it has nothing to do with UFOs, as it happens. And of course, the UFO community, if you want to call it that, the disclosure community, has gotten very excited about this incident, thinking for the first time that there is some kind of military sanctioned or, backed disclosure. And certainly the William Tompkins revelations have been backed to some degree by the Navy. There's no doubt about that. But at any rate, if you understand that this is how governments talk to each other oftentimes, and when I say governments, you really have to keep in mind that we're not talking about individual countries anymore when it comes to government. We're talking about segments of countries that have banded together, that are working together within certain programs, and what we call, loosely speaking, the secret space program. So this very advanced technology, according to my whistleblower, was being demonstrated and then used to disinfo the American public into thinking that their government was finally revealing actual UFO sighting that their military was actually acknowledging was a real one. And of course, also there's the Pentagon supposed program that was revealed, even though they've been saying all this time that since Blue Book, they never investigated UFOs. Now they're turning around and saying, oh, well, wait a minute, we actually have been investigating them. And we've been doing so to the tune about, I think it was some really small amount, relatively speaking, something like $10 million, when in reality, we're talking about billions and trillions of dollars that have gone into the secret space program and investigating and dealing with ETs and building interstellar spacecraft. And that the pilot, and the question becomes, did the pilot that's also interviewed by the local media, and it's on, you can see the pilot, in at least one of the pilots interviewed there, and you'll see that he's talking about, wow, he saw this amazing craft or group of crafts, and he couldn't believe how fast they were going, and wow, he'd really like to fly that, but he didn't know anything about it, and basically he couldn't identify it, so it was an unidentified flying object, so to speak. And this guy, Luis Alessandro, is, again, he's head of security for Tom DeLonge's To the Stars, but his background is CIA and much more than that, I can tell you. And he is the one who is also backing this particular sighting. And so what we have is more disinfo. This is the trouble that I think, it's important that New Agers and people that want to jump on the bandwagon and think finally they've got somebody out there disclosing in an official way, not so fast. It's not what it seems. I've also been told by this particular source that a lot of these so-called arrests going into Guantanamo Bay, that there's all, Fulford's talking about it, and a lot of people are talking about it on the internet. It does appear that Trump administration is appearing to take down portions of the Illuminati. However, I've been told that the real culprits behind the scenes will never be taken down, and that's simply what I was told. This is a very good source of information that I have, and there's no reason for this person to be lying to me as it appears. So I'm just throwing that out there for people to let people know that what's happening now, or what appears to be happening, may not really be actually what it appears to be. I'm also told that the so-called arrests going into Guantanamo are also not what they appear to be. We are dealing with rule by secrecy. It's important to realize this has been going on for as many years as America has been a country, certainly, and way long before that. And so I think that people need to be highly critical. I think they need to be analyzing the information very closely. And you have to ask yourself why, after all these years, would they choose an incident that is as questionable as this particular one is, apparently, and that may actually be revealing their own technology, highly developed, maybe even based on ET technology. Now, 13 years after the actual filming of this technology took place and the sighting by that pilot or pilots. And then you have to say to yourself, what is the game here? Why are they going to this trouble at this time to select one incident, trot it forward, and then I find out that basically they're doing it as some kind of shot across the bow threat to show the Chinese government the kind of toys we really have, and that it has nothing to do with revealing the presence of so-called ETs, as we call them, sort of loosely. So this is just part of the story. There's so much more to it, of course, but it is interesting. I am thinking that perhaps not only was John Lear tipped off, but I believe that Grant Cameron, he has some very good contacts, was also tipped off, as I have been. And I think we have to look closer at all these incidents and see what's really going on.
Yes.
So I just wanted to let people know about that. That's what I've been hearing, and that's where it's at the moment. Certainly, if I get more information, and since I'm talking about this right now, I'm sure that I will get more information going forward. You know, there are a lot of people trying to work in positive ways, and I do appreciate that. We are trying to work in a positive way as well, but it is also important to be cautious, to understand that the Illuminati are not giving up. They are not standing down, contrary to what certain people will tell you, and to stay ever vigilant and just have your wits about you.
Yeah. And how about to make it illegal for example, a president or people within government and military say this and that and this is illegal. So, for example, that it would be illegal, it would be criminal to cover up that there are non-human beings with advanced technology here on Earth. And how about that? To criminalize this?
I'm not sure what you're saying. Can you kind of repeat that? I mean, you're saying, what are you trying to, are you asking a question? Or
Obviously, many people know that there have been cover-up of the fact that there are non-human beings with highly advanced technology that have also they have also treaties with some government.
Absolutely.
Your former U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower. So, as they said to us that it's illegal, it's criminal to say that Holocaust never happened. How about say what's will be illegal now? It would be illegal to cover up that there are beings, non-human beings with highly advanced technology, and also these treaties those who are covering it up should be charged for criminal. Who will do it? Your government will do it, won't do it, our government won't do it. So right. Let's have the court and make the court ourselves, and then the court and economic compensation. Because you said, like, if you say conspiracy theory, it's not a conspiracy theory. We are conspiracy historians, because can you see this man It's Jacob Rothschild.
Uh-huh.
In the beginning of 2017, he had an interview on BBC where he says it took us 3,000 years to get to Jerusalem or something like that. So he confirmed that conspiracy, and it's longer than 3,000 years. But he said in this interview that 3,000 years they have tried to come to get to Jerusalem, and it's actually Jerusalem would be the headquarters of New World Order. You have the court there where the head of the Illuminati would judge us in a very wrong way, and they wanted to build the third temple of Solomon because the religion is the main disinformation or deception tools of them. It's not only media and music industry and film industry, it's the religion. And many of the Illuminati puppets has informed already in 2013, 2014 that the biggest day on the planet will be 23rd of September 2017, and what they wanted to accomplish, that the head of Illuminati, or in biblical term the Antichrist, would enter the third temple of Solomon and declare himself like the second coming of Christ. It never happens because many people understood that this plan, and they have been blocking it. And I will tell you also something. You said something new, so I will say something new also. This picture, this is the head of Illuminati, William Van Down, born 20th of May 1963. He's from Belgium, probably Antwerp. He has lived for many years in your country and actually in California. I believe it was until Davos meeting. It's in the beginning of the year, I believe February every year. So until Davos, I believe it was 2016, he lived in California as you. And then after that, he moved to Rhode Island as a celebration that he moved from California. They assassinated, Eagles, the song Hotel California. So he celebrated his time in his years in California, like he was using California as a hotel. So they, that they assassinate different pop stars and movie stars and football players. And on 19th of September 2017, I would be assassinated. They were planning to assassinate me, the police here, state police. And at the same time, 19th of September 2017, the prosecutor here in this town has written to me that, can you see something of that, Kerry?
Yes.
You know that I am medical doctor Alexandra Jitka Brozíková. 19th of September 2017, you can recognize my emailing address. And what he's written, that William Van Down, born 20th of May 1963, this prosecutor, Pavel Kejslar, Czech prosecutor in my hometown, Kladno, is sending a criminal investigation to the regional office of prosecutor office on the head of Illuminati, William Van Down. So who is the most wanted criminal? Is it Kim Jong-un that your country is chasing? Or is it a man who lives mostly in your country. They have education on Bahamas. Lindsay Williams has confirmed that he was there in 80s, that they are educating people from, I guess, from the whole world in Illumicorp thoughts. You have also others who, like Rima Labo, George Green, that knows about, they are witnesses that these people want to murder billions of people. And I can tell you also that I have a company, and from 1st of January 2017, even if you don't understand it, it's that our Czech National Bank, which is the same as your federal bank, which is a bank of Rothschild, we have to send them our money for health insurance to this account of this Czech National Bank, which is your federal bank, which means that this is not Czech people. It must be the same as your federal bank, Rothschilds and banksters. So now they have all our accounts and our health of all people in Czech Republic, or at least those who have companies, or I believe all people are now linked, have an account, send money to Czech national banks, which is the same as federal bank. I don't know if you understand that we are entrapped. We are in a big fight now. We know what they have done. We know who they are. I have communicated with William Van Down, but not the usual way. But there is another second person who has communicated with the head of Illuminati with letters, so emails, I guess. And the man is Fritz Springmeier. Fritz Springmeier is a witness. I am a witness about the highest level, and that William Van Down is the head of Illuminati, and he's from Belgium originally.
Okay. All right. It's very possible.
Yeah, we have to do something about this problem, Kerry. Otherwise, they will kill us. The children have no future. So you have been brave. You have been brave. I know that they were trying to assassinate you. And if we are not brave enough, now when so many people has worked so hard, many of us have been killed by Secret Service. Shall we still accept that we know that the Secret Service are killing people? They are working with drugs. They are working with trafficking, organ. Shall we accept it still the 3rd of or 2nd of January 2018, or shall we take over and make the rules how we shall do it?
I appreciate what you're saying. Absolutely. Well, I think educating people is the first step. And we've been doing this first step for many, many years now. And I do think the people are waking up everywhere. And that's why we have so many people on YouTube that are talking about these situations, talking about what's going on, and trying to determine what's true and what's not. In a time when we are in what is called the information age, information becomes the sort of a fulcrum of control. So the way they control the people is through limiting their access to information and spinning the information in certain ways to elicit certain behaviors from the people as well. So it's really a battle for consciousness in the end of the day. And I'm not sure that even taking control supposedly taking control of governments is going to be the final answer for humanity, because in the end of the day, governments seem to be so wrapped up in the power establishment, regardless of who they are or how they attempt to operate. As long as humans are giving their power away to others to so-called rule them, regardless of the terminology they give it, whether they call it democracy, which is a complete farce in the United States, or whether they call it, some other form of government. If you give your power over to so-called experts, this is where the problems begin. So, sure, we have to take back our own power, and people have to be made aware. And the more people that are willing to come forward to reveal the truth, the whistleblowers, and to become whistleblowers, to risk their own lives, and to stand up so that their children might have a better, brighter future, the better.
Yeah, it's very true. And thank you so much, Kerry, that I have learned so much on your YouTube channel, that you have been so brave to make it possible for all these years.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. I know that there is a lot more to say, a lot more to reveal this year, and I'm going to be working as hard as ever to bring forward the people that I feel have pieces of the puzzles, as we call it, and trying to break through the sort of the wall of secrecy that we are exposed to everywhere. And it's very disheartening to hear that some of these people that are trying to supposedly work for the good of humanity end up to be taken over, to be going down false roads, etc. And so I'm sad to hear that you lost some money with regard to Kevin Arnett and that situation. I'm sorry to hear that. There are many people that are struggling to make sense of all of it. I will say that there is, I don't have a lot more time tonight, but I can say that the cryptocurrency craze that's going on is also something to be watched very carefully. I do have some people that are coming forward to reveal that it's not also what it seems on the surface, and I should have more information on that level as the days go by here. I can say that it does remind me of the California gold rush and various other times when money and the potential for making large amounts of money is redirecting human energy down a sort of very self-serving path. Even people that are attempting to make a lot of money so that they can do something for the world, so to speak. But you must understand that the energy and the focus is being taken away from the actual true struggle and put on money and currency and making money, and away from actually revealing the truth, seeing through the lies, etc. And so this is what worries me about cryptocurrency and the new craze, the new gold rush, so to speak, that has taken over a lot of humanity at this time. And I do have somebody writing to me who has made a very good point, saying that they believe one thing that's going on is they are, in a certain sense, hoovering up all the dollars that are out there right now. And the cryptos is one way to do it. I'm trying to get more information about that theory, but it does make some logical sense if you look at what may be coming down the pike sometime in the near future with regard to this whole financial reset, if you want to call it that. So I just want to say that I did interview Stan Larimer, and he is a former, actually, I would say, Black project scientist who also has a son who's involved in the crypto world, and he is involved in BitShares as well. And he is talking about the hold that China has over Bitcoin through the miners. And I understand there's a lot of controversy along those lines, but he said some very important things on my interview with him. And I also want to encourage people to see my interview with Lynette Zhang on those same subjects to do with cryptocurrencies. I will continue down that road. It does link up directly to getting people very accustomed to dealing with artificial intelligence and to giving the power away once again, in the hope of greener pastures to do with, riches and so on. And I understand people are making money. And Project Camelot is accepting donations in cryptocurrencies. So, I can see where it may be a way to profit in the short term. But I think it's really important on a spiritual level to understand where your energy is going. And if your energy is going to trying to make money in the crypto world, and you are neglecting what really matters in, to do with humanity, then it could be quite a dangerous tool. So just wanted to say that. I do have to go. Did you want to say anything here? Some closing remarks?
Yeah, it's just two things that I get warning every time you hear cryptocurrency, CC, or Catholic Church, CC, or climate change, CC. I hear 33-degree Freemason because C is the third letter. And the last thing is that I am organizing a conference in Czech Republic, 21st till 23rd of September 2018. You are very welcome to come as a speaker. Ole Dammegård has already said that he will come and speak, and Miles Johnston has also said that he will come, as I understand it. So you are very welcome, and everybody also. Thank you so much, Kerry, and thank you that you took your time again.
Oh.
We will hear from each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.